Renowned artist Dona Look is exhibiting some of her sewn and woven birch bark baskets in an exhibition called Beyond the Trees at the Center for Art in Wood in Philadelphia. I talked to her by phone on a particularly brisk Wisconsin afternoon.
Okay, I'm looking outside my own backyard, and it's about 0 degrees. We have 160 acres of white birch trees that we've been reforesting and replanting for 35 years. I create forms by trimming the strips of bark. Frankly, I see the white birch bark as a really precious material. So I don't just start cutting away on my bark. I make a pattern of the whole thing in paper. Then I use that pattern on the bark so that I'm not wasting any of it. I've often seen birch bark as a fiber. I'm cutting it up in strips and weaving it, and it becomes more like a man-made fabric that has a warp and a weft. Birch has to be peeled when the sap is running in the spring.
Are birch trees a little bit like sheep? Can you take some of their bark and then it'll grow back?
If you peel the bark very carefully and take just the cambium or outer layer, then if conditions are right, that tree will continue to live, and I have done that. I have 2 or 3 pieces going at once. I like to take some breaks to back away and look at things before I plow ahead with an idea. I'm slow in my process. With most of my pieces, the bark that you see is almost all from one tree. Each tree is unique, like humans, and the bark has unique qualities, whether it's a certain thickness or color. So I try to keep an overall unity in the piece. Bark has these really unique qualities. It's extremely flammable. It has a lot of resin in it, so it was used as torches. It's also waterproof, so it was used as canoes and vessels that could hold water.
Would you characterize yourself as an environmentalist?
Oh, of course, yes.
Believe in global warming?
I do. It's quite obvious in my own environment. In fact, I don't know how much longer I will be able to work with white birch bark because I probably have to go to Alaska to get it. The older, more mature trees are all gone in the area that I live now. Fortunately, in the last, say, 15 or 20 years, at least on my own property, I see new growth. What I do is really an extension of what my mother and my grandmother taught me as a child. We did a lot of sewing in our house. When I was younger, I started making baskets with a friend just as a fun hobby, collecting materials in our own area. That's how I got started making baskets. But there was a space in there. 4 to 5 years I lived in Australia. A lot of sheep and wool in Australia. I was learning to spin and weave there. And when I moved back to the States, I discovered white birch bark. Started by weaving and sewing, oddly enough, pillows out of woven birch bark filled with balsam needles. And it's just grown from there.
Where did you go to art school?
University of Wisconsin. I have a degree in art education. I intended to be a teacher. That's actually the reason I went to Australia. I went there as an art teacher. I really enjoyed the kids and the work. I wasn't that enthusiastic about all the administrative stuff that goes with it. And I was more interested in going in my own direction, making my own things. It's interesting, as I get older, I realize I don't necessarily know where my work is. A friend and collector, he was in the Metropolitan Museum in New York, and he saw a piece of mine included in a recent acquisitions show and sent me a photo of it.
And you didn't have any clue?
No, I have no clue who donated it. They never send you information and say, welcome to our collection. They don't do that. My husband's name is Ken Loeber. We've known each other for over 50 years, since we were in high school, so we've been friends for a long time. In 1981, we started working together, designing and creating a production line of sterling silver and 18-karat gold jewelry. A problem came up 14 years ago. Ken had a stroke, which damaged his speech and language center. He has difficulty with conversation, and he's now working with one hand, which is fairly miraculous, I think. But for myself, a lot of my attention that I would have normally put on my own basket work turned to help him get back to work and keep our business going. So now I divide my time between two different studios. I've been thinking a lot about interior space. I think about the brain a lot, partly because of Ken's situation, thinking about how to take the chaos that's out there and put some order in it. Some of these pieces I have woven the inside, and the outside is sewn.
Do you have any advice, being an artist who's done this for many years, how to live a good life?
I've learned a lot, but I guess what I would tell my son is to always strive to be creative in all that you do, and not just being an artist, but creative in a way that you hope to build a better world or create a better life around you. That means be fearless whenever you can be and spread love. It sounds so simple, but if you express love and beauty in some way, I think it returns to you. At least in my experience, it has been that way. I was strong enough to go out there with my work, and very fortunate to meet people that were encouraging me. I have a husband and I have a son. I have family members who really have encouraged me, and I've met really wonderful people that felt that what I was doing was worthwhile. Oh, I'm endlessly grateful for the life I've had, being able to work with your own ideas and be totally responsible for what you put out there in the world. So many friends are now retiring. I can't even imagine doing that because I would do the same thing. You know? When I started to study the history of basket making, I am so inspired by unnamed Native Americans, Aboriginal Australians, people from around the world, the things that they created out of materials that were in their environment. And there's a history of what was done with some of these things. I hope that I can expand on that and be inspired by what I've been given.